Hello, everyone. Welcome to Choosing the Right Platform for a Website in Today's Competitive Environment. My name is Anoop Sandhu, and I'm the Director of Engineering at Silvertech. For today's webinar, our agenda is covering the key terms and concepts you need when choosing a platform in today's environment. The sorts of things you need to know. What is a CMS? What is a DXP? We'll go over the terminology and the pros and cons of each. We'll talk about architectural models, so headless versus hybrid, SaaS versus self-managed. So once you've actually built a website and have a platform, how are you hosting it? How is the public getting access to your website? Composable versus monolithic platform structures. Do you go with a partner who is trying to do everything themselves, or do you go with a partner who is buying best of breed and then wiring everything up for you so that you don't have to worry about integrations? What are the pros and cons there? Personalization, how to leverage that, what platforms come with personalization, where you might have to do it yourself. Integrating AI features, the hottest new buzzword for the last year and a half. Where can you actually integrate AI in a way that really adds value to your platform? And finally, making an informed decision. Once you have the terms, once you understand the terminology, how do you wrap it all up to do something that is right for you when you're ready to make this decision? The CMS/DXP landscape. CMS stands for Content Management System. This is fundamentally software that allows you to create and manage websites, digital contents, primarily websites, in an easy-to-use manner. Generally speaking, what you see is what you get. You'll drag a widget or some content, you'll put it on the page, and when you hit publish, that's what the end user is seeing. This allows marketers to create content and websites without needing developers for simple content edits. And key players here include things like WordPress, Drupal, Joomla, and Contentful. Very common, easily accessible. Trends in this industry, there's a growing adoption of headless content management systems, and we'll talk about headless in a future slide. AI integration, as with everywhere, and enhanced security across the board, really where the assumption is not that you, as an end user, as a management person of that system, understand every aspect of security, but that security is more holistically baked into that content management system. A DXP stands for a digital experience platform. It's basically the next evolution of a CMS. A DXP integrates tools for managing, delivering, and optimizing customer experience across multiple digital channels. Think marketing automation, think email automation. It's really about engagement with your customer and meeting them where you are, getting them to your web channel, but also knowing what they're doing in other channels and in other aspects of their engagement with you. Key players here include Kentico, Sitefinity, Sitecore, Acquia, and Liferay, and some trends here that really drive the difference between a content management system and a DXP, a digital experience platform. AI-driven personalization, a bigger focus on headless architecture, and composable DXPs. When we talk about things like AI-driven personalization, we're no longer reliant upon a marketer, for example, trying to determine trends, but the system is complex enough to know these are the points of engagement throughout my life cycle, and here are some proposals for where you could personalize content to really drive engagement going forward. Understanding architectural models, and this might have the tagline of, as a marketer, why do I care? Generally speaking, when you're managing content, you don't necessarily know if your content management system, your DXP, is headless or hybrid, but the architecture behind it and the thought that goes into your platform can help drive speed to delivery. Your flexibility with what you can do on page can be driven by the fundamental architectural model of your content management system. If everything is very static and requires a developer to change, you're not going to be able to get that speed to market. Conversely, if the content management system or DXP comes with flexibility and you leverage that flexibility in your build, you have a lot of leeway in what you can do on a page and across multiple channels without just needing a developer or a technical resource to jump in every time you want to try something new, every time you want to experiment. And that really helps drive engagement when you're free to architect your vision without needing code. A headless CMS is one that separates the content management, the back end, from the content delivery. So when you hear about headless, you're thinking APIs, basically little services that help drive content across multiple channels. You're seeing this more in the industry because it is very flexible and it is fantastic for omni-channel content delivery. The backend, the content doesn't care where it's being viewed. It just cares about the structure of the content. And then whether it's a web, whether it's mobile, whether it's an IoT device like an Alexa, it can all drive its data from that singular backend. This is suited for organizations that need a lot of flexibility and control over the front-end development of their site, or are really looking to spread to multiple channels. A hybrid CMS has a goal of trying to give you the best of both worlds, leaving that headless layer in place, but also providing the features and tools you need to rapidly deliver a product to market. You don't have to design every aspect of the front end yourself. You don't have to develop every widget, every module, every feature from scratch. It's going to provide a starter and the basic fundamental bones of your website to you. This is fantastic in getting something out to market quickly, while also retaining the flexibility to change up what you need and go fully custom when you want to. So this is really good for businesses that want both the headless capability and that built-in front-end management, and they really try to strike a balance between customization and speed to market. Deployment models. Really quickly, just some terminology here. Software as a service versus on-prem or on-premise. So you'll see software as a service shortened to SaaS. All that means is that a different provider is hosting the website for you, generally in the cloud. On-premise means that you as an organization are taking on the responsibility of hosting the software yourself. It could be in the cloud, it could be on your own servers, but fundamentally you are managing every aspect of the hosting of your website, your content management system, your DXP. So when we talk about SaaS versus self-managed / on-premise, there's some trade-offs: control, scalability, and cost. Let's take a look at control. SaaS versus self-managed. When someone else is hosting your infrastructure, you have very little insight or control into when they update and the makeup of that infrastructure. When you manage it yourself, you have full control over the hardware, the software, and every aspect of the configuration. The con here is that managing it yourself does mean you have full control over everything, so you're responsible for every aspect of hosting, all the troubleshooting that goes into it, all the upkeep, and in many cases, the same teams responsible for managing these aspects internally for an organization are also held responsible for managing this externally, and it can really spread teams thin. Having a SaaS provider, especially one who might be intimately familiar with your content management system or DXP, allows you to separate the concern of the infrastructure and security, leaving it in the hands of someone whose sole responsibility it is to make sure your infrastructure is sound. Scalability, SaaS versus self-managed. When we talk about SaaS, we're assuming cloud infrastructure that can scale with the push of a button or even automatically as your organization grows and demand increases. When it's self-managed, the scalability really depends on the internal infrastructure capabilities. So each organization has to be familiar with what do we need to do to scale, what is the time frame it takes to scale, and what resources do we need to pull in to scale. Most organizations are not set up to dynamically scale, but as organizations mature, that's not necessarily a true statement across the board. Many are leveraging cloud-style infrastructure even internally. And finally, cost. SaaS is subscription-based pricing. You pay for what you use when you need it. There's a lower upfront cost, but ongoing expenses might be higher. Self-managed / on-premise, you're generally purchasing all the hardware upfront and then depreciating it over time, so you have an initial hardware cost with potentially lower long-term costs. Our suggestion here is to really look for something that meets you in the middle. You don't have to host everything in-house or have all of your infrastructure in the cloud. We find the people that are having the most success managing cost are looking at the types of workloads they need and perhaps having all their lower environments, their test servers in-house, whereas their SaaS hosts their production infrastructure that really has that need to dynamically scale. Item number 4 on our agenda is platform structures. Composable, also called plug and play, versus monolithic or an all-in-one solution. A composable solution is also generally marketed as a best-in-breed solution, a content management system or a digital experience platform that instead of trying to do everything by itself, will instead round up, quote, best-in-breed software that's really good at what it does, and it ties it all together for you. So this is a modular approach where all the different components can be integrated as needed. For example, marketing automation, it might partner with something like a HubSpot, and you use it when you need it. This may or may not have a license impact, but you're not creating the logic for talking to a HubSpot yourself. You're simply checking a box or configuring an integration. With this modular approach, the vendor is responsible for building out those integrations and making sure everything talks to each other, and you're responsible for simply using the tools to the best of your ability. The pros here, there's a lot of flexibility to adapt to specific business needs. If you don't like a specific integration, it's generally very simple to switch that out for something else. You can replace individual components without needing to impact the entire system. For cons, it can be complex to integrate and manage those vendors. You're not necessarily doing everything from within your single point of entry, and there can be higher licensing costs as you're not responsible for just your content management system or your DXP. You might also need a license with the integrating party. A monolithic platform, on the other hand, is going to try to do everything for you as a single system. It's a unified platform with all the features you need integrated into that same system. It's typically easier to implement and manage. You have one vendor for all your needs, and the integrated features ensure seamless operation compatibility because there is no third-party integration. You don't have to worry about another vendor changing how they talk to your system. It's all within the same platform. This does mean you might have less flexibility to customize or add new functionality. You might have to update the core of your existing system to try to do something different. And there's the risk of vendor lock-in. If your vendor is doing everything for you, it's much more difficult to step away from that vendor, and you're tied to their speed to market for new features. Leveraging personalization. Many content management systems and digital experience platforms come with the ability to personalize content as a default feature. You don't need a developer to make changes to your code so that you can dynamically modify content if you're using a sophisticated personalization engine. For example, a DXP with a sophisticated personalization engine is going to be able to use AI to track a user's journey throughout your site and help identify touch points for engagement and conversion. And this can be used in conjunction with something like A/B testing to see if tweaks to that content drive engagement or reduce engagement. A sophisticated CMS or DXP with a solid personalization engine will drive these metrics for you, reducing the need on third-party manual analysis of tools like Google Analytics or third-party analytics, because the content management system is tracking all of this for you. And this really helps transition into our next slide, integrating AI features. Personalization is a fantastic opportunity to utilize AI. Use it to help recommend what content is prime for engagement. Use it to help identify where personalization is valid, but still have the content created by a human being. Search engines have stated that they're looking for human-generated content, so AI is not necessarily the best source for writing content, but it is absolutely fantastic for identifying where content is needed. This also ties into enhancing your SEO because human-generated content has been stated by people like Google to be a better SEO marker for a website. With AI powering personalization, it's also fantastic for workflow automation and segmenting audience because it can learn how users are interacting with your site over time and really reduce that human aspect. And finally, there are some practical applications. By utilizing AI chatbots and sentiment analysis, you can determine if your content is really driving engagement, or do you need to tweak something to really help address why people are engaging with that chatbot, for example. And finally, making an informed decision. You want to ensure that the DXP or CMS platform you choose aligns closely with what you're doing now and what you want to be doing in the future. The last thing anyone wants is to go down a path where 6 months or 12 months from now, you find out that what you built is not scalable to what you're trying to do. You also don't want to overpay for something that has all the bells and whistles that you're not going to leverage for perhaps another decade. So some reminders for key attributes and functionality to look for. The content management aspect. Is it user-friendly creation and editing of content? So a CMS stands for a content management system. It has to help you manage content. If it is difficult to create a page or it is difficult to modify content, over time, you're just not going to do it. Personalization. Does the CMS or DXP of your choice have the ability to personalize, and how easy or difficult is it for you to do without requiring a developer or code? Integration. If there are existing or new third-party systems you're looking into, does that integration already exist, or is it something you'll have to create because the way it works isn't necessarily right for your business needs? Analytics. Do you have a need for a CMS or a DXP that has its own robust tracking and performance insights, or are you already using a Google Analytics or another tool to manage this yourself? Is this a feature that's going to provide value, or is it just more overhead? Scalability and security. Does the content management system or DXP of your choice have the ability to scale? So what other players are using that content management system? And what is their history with security? Can they provide a SOC 2 report? Can they provide historical penetration tests and vulnerability tests? Any good CMS or DXP should be able to give you this historical information. And finally, aligning with your business objectives. You don't want to overpay for something you're never going to use, but you do need to make sure it can grow with you as your organization grows. This is where the art meets the science. Only you understand what your business goals are and where you're going to be 5 years from now, 10 years from now. But the cost of the CMS, the cost of the DXP, should be amortized over that time to make sure it's there for you when you need it, not just today, but a year from now. And that also includes, ideally, access to robust support mechanisms. Are there training resources for you, for your developers? Do you have help when you need it from either the CMS or DXP provider itself, or a well-placed partner like Silvertech who can interact with the CMS or DXP on your behalf? Thank you all for joining my webinar. It's been an absolute pleasure to be hosting for you. If you have any further questions, please don't hesitate to reach out.